Sambuca with Dad in Venice, mini martinis, and Mad Men's influence on cocktail culture. This week, we're in London, England.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. I'm Brent Peterson. Destination Eat Drink is for foodies who love to travel and travelers who love to eat. And this week, we're having cocktails with Susan Schwartz of London Cocktail Tours. But first, do me a favor, rate and review the show on your podcast app. It helps more foodie travelers just like you find the show. I've also got 24 foodie travel guide ebooks available for download. There's city guides to Lisbon and Porto, Milan, Seville, San Sebastian, and lots more at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. There's also a complete Portugal foodie travel guide with all 17 Portugal city guides in one ebook for just $9.99. That's almost a $60 value for $9.99. Get yours at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. Susan Schwartz is a foodie writer and cocktail tour guide based in London. Susan's popular drink blog called Lush Life Manual has recipes and home cocktail essentials and cocktail guides to cities around the world. It's at lushlifemanual.com. Susan's also a podcaster. Her podcast, Lush Life, is currently in its 9th season and takes a deep dive into cocktail culture with some of the biggest names in the industry. And Susan is the founder of London Cocktail Tours, a beautifully sophisticated tour of some of SoHo's best bars and tastiest cocktails. Susan and I talk about why there's been an explosion of interest in cocktails, why bars must have non-alcoholic options on their cocktail menu these days, and what makes a great bar. Okay, I'm thirsty, so let's drink.
Destination Eat Drink.
Susan Schwartz from London Cocktail Tours. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink. I'm happy to have you on the show. I'm really excited to talk about cocktails with you today.
Oh, I'm really thrilled to be on the show too. Thank you for having me.
You know, it seems like cocktails, I mean, of course, cocktails have been around forever, but it seems like cocktails are really having a moment right now. How do you attribute this explosion in the interest of cocktails?
Well, you know, I'm thrilled that there is this because I adore cocktails and I've always loved cocktails, you know, since I first moved to New York in the 90s. Why is there this explosion? I think now Robert Simonson, who writes for the New York Times, wrote a whole book on this, by the way.
Okay.
Oh boy. I can't remember what it's called. Shoot. We'll look it up and I'll tell you in a sec. Really, I think that a couple things were happening right at the end of I was about to say the 1900s. I meant the 2000s. A few people opened bars. I won't make it a really, really long story because we could just be talking about this for an hour. But, a few things were happening. Some bartenders were starting to question everything we were getting in bars in the 80s, the 70s and 80s. And they were saying, why are we using mixers? Not fresh ingredients. Like, why aren't we using real lemons? Why are we using mixes? That's not mixers, but mixes to do things that we can do naturally. And it was kind of on both sides of the Atlantic, London and the US at the same time. We're asking these questions and they started to hark back to the old days, get the old cocktail books and look at them and go, okay, what were these people doing? Why aren't we making these cocktails? Let's look at bourbon again. Let's look at whiskey again. Let's look at gin again. Let's use, as I said, fresh lemon juice, fresh this. And they just kept questioning what was happening in the bars at that moment and thinking of it in a new way. Even though it was kind of like the Renaissance, the Florentines are like, oh, we really liked what they did in the Greek and Roman era. Let's bring that back. And it was just happening at the same time. It was like a light switch went on. And we're 25 years later, we're I feel like at the boom of it. I mean, it just keeps going. There's not even one restaurant that doesn't have a cocktail menu. Now we have, non-alcoholic spirits, a whole new category of spirits, so many gins because laws were changed. I mean, it's a great time to be a cocktail lover.
I wonder if this also coincides because at that time, 20 plus years ago, I was getting into the farm to table movement. We had a small hobby farm on our property, and we started a farmers market in our community in Rhode Island. And people were really getting interested in sourcing your food locally and getting to know your farmer, and that whole thing was in the zeitgeist. And it seems like that permeated into other parts of the culture. And what you're describing is the same kind of thing that I was experiencing then 20 plus years ago. It's really interesting that this would go into cocktails as well as just food on the table.
Yeah, I think it must have been a follow on from what the chefs were doing. People like Alice Waters, Chez Panisse, and Arcadia, New York. I can't remember who was the chef there, but those two restaurants I remember or were kind of the forebearers of this farm to table, explosion that took place in the US, at least. I don't know about the UK, to change how we eat and how we think about food. And I think the bartenders and people in the spirits industry, got also, because it's food as well, couldn't help but also be influenced by them. So absolutely 100%. And, in restaurants, a lot of restaurants, the bar and the bartenders, the bar managers, the mixologists, whatever you want to call them, work hand in hand with the chefs. So whatever the chefs had left over or, were ordering, they would order for the bartenders as well.
Oh, right. Makes sense. Mm-hmm. I wonder if, because I always think about the culture at large when I talk about topics like this. And I wonder if something like Mad Men didn't have an influence on this as well. Because as I travel around, I talked with my friend Pip Jones about this. She's a podcaster and a writer.
I know her.
Okay.
I know her well.
She's a great lady. And
yeah.
And she did an episode with me, one of the episodes she was on, talking about what we call film and TV tourism. Mm. And how a lot of places have become very popular because of movies and TV shows. One of the James Bond movies was, part of it was filmed right here in our backyard in Portugal. And, Game of Thrones is responsible for a lot of the tourism in places like Dubrovnik. We just got back from Malta where a lot of things was. And this kind of TV and film influences the greater culture at large. And Mad Men, I was a Mad Men watcher, and I remember them drinking cocktails on that. Do you think there was any influence there?
100%. Absolutely. Everything was happening at the same time. I loved Mad Men as well. So Milk and Honey, the urban myth is that it opened December 31st, 1999. Milk and Honey was one of the most important bars to change things. And the London Academy of Bartenders Lab Bar also opened, about that time. So that's right at 2000. And I think when was Mad Men? Mad Men was, that had to be in the early 2000s.
Yeah, shortly thereafter.
So, what they were doing at their bars might not have reached the world at large because they were doing it in small communities in New York and London. But definitely, drinking that old fashioned, seeing, John Hamm, Don Draper, mixing a cocktail absolutely had something to do with it.
And the home cocktail bars were so cool in that show. I can picture it in my head. You got the little set, and in The Office. That was the other thing that I loved.
Right, I love it.
Like, all right, we're working, but let's have 3 cocktails in quick succession.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. And they made it look so cool. They did.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Very little of the fallout. Well, I guess in the show they kind of depicted it, but very little of the fallout of what happens when you have 3 martinis for lunch. Just part of doing business, I guess, in the 1950s, so or 60s. I listen to your podcast, Lush Life, right? Lush Life
Yeah.
podcast, and I get it confused because your website is Lush Life Manual. We'll have
Yes.
links to both of those in the show notes.
Oh, thanks.
But I listened to it, and I'm like, it feels like it's so intimate, like we're right there behind the bar and we're learning these inside secrets. I call it inside baseball. And some people use inside baseball as a pejorative, like, oh, that's too inside, people won't understand. I think you make it very accessible for people to understand it, but also getting into all of this minutia that doesn't even cross my mind when I walk into a cocktail bar.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're hoping to do, is to show how intricate these things can be. I mean, I've had, there are bartenders I've interviewed, or distillers, or, anyone in the industry, and how, who are like neuroscientists, or, study plant biology,
right?
Or, and or artists, and their medium is spirits, or are spirits. Their media are spirits. So yeah, I hope to make it also very accessible, because they're educating me, and I feel like I'm kind of even though I've done the WSET, and now 10 years later, I know a lot more than I did when I started. I do come at the podcast hopefully as someone who might not know anything, because, really, as much as I've learned in 10 years, I really still don't know anything.
Right.
They're constantly teaching me things.
Yeah. I always say I know enough to be dangerous. It's funny because my podcast,
I love that.
My podcast started off, it was just me. It wasn't an interview podcast. It was me talking about places where I had been and stuff that I had experienced. And I soon realized that it was much more interesting for me personally, and hopefully for the audience, to get people on who knew way more than I did and could teach me, rather than me trying to teach the audience. And that's how this podcast has kind of evolved. It was a pretty quick transformation. I mean, it was in the first year, and we're in our 7th year of doing this podcast now. So yeah. I think we're kind of similar ideology when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
Susan, I did want to talk to you about cocktail bars specifically, and I'm wondering, you as a person who talks about this and writes about this and who has experience, what do you look for specifically in a good cocktail bar? Can you walk in and immediately go, oh yeah, this is going to be good? Or are there certain factors that you look for, certain signs that you look for that make you think, oh, this is the right place?
I think that what makes a good bar is how they react. I guess it's all about hospitality, because there are lots of people who can make a great drink. I mean, I'm so spoiled in London. Literally every single bar I go into, someone knows how to make a fabulous drink, really. So I think it's about how they make you feel when you're sitting in their bar that makes it great. Because, we have things like the 50 best and world's best and, Spirited Awards and all those things. And I think I guess it's how you feel. Do you want to return after you've had that drink? When you walk into certain bars, I'll mention like a Paradiso. You walk in, that was, number one a few years ago. It's in Barcelona, a wonderful place. When you walk in, literally they shout, welcome, hi,
right.
No matter what they're doing. And a lot of people walk into that bar. So it's constantly, yes, we're so happy to have you. We want to make your night great. And I think that's really what makes it for me. Yeah, of course, it's great to have a great cocktail, and but I think that can happen in not only a bar like Paradiso, but whatever your local bar is. That's what's wonderful. I always say you go into a restaurant because you're hungry. You don't go into a bar because you're thirsty. You go into a bar because you want that. You want that feeling that you are automatically part of the crowd. You can go up to the bar by yourself and know that there are friends behind the bar. And that, to me, is what makes the best bar. And that's why people keep going back to the same one, so that they become kind of the locals, the regulars. So they become friends with the bar staff, and you know that you're always welcome there. And I think that's the number one thing that makes a bar great.
Paradiso could easily sit back on their laurels after all of these accolades, and yet they're still offering this level of hospitality, even after being ranked number one, I think more than once worldwide. But I want to ask you this about London, because you're based in London. And when I think of London, I think of the neighborhood pub. When I think of a cocktail bar, I think of something more fancy rather than a place that I go in where they'll pull a nice pint for me. And I'm wondering, are those two things necessarily exclusive to each other? In other words, can I get a really good cocktail in my neighborhood pub, or is it just the domain of a fancy cocktail bar?
I think it depends which pub you go to.
Of course,
really.
Of course.
I think there are some pubs that, make great drinks. I mean, they have great products. So you have the Fever Trees, you have the great spirits. They're going to be pretty much in every pub. It's, when bars are concentrating on just using spirits all the time, and that's what their clients want, they're probably, and this is such a generalization, going to be better at making that. If you go to a general surgeon or a GP or a specialist, it's that maybe that kind of metaphor. So you're going to get good treatment from your GP, but if you need that special thing that you want, like the martini, you're going to go to a certain bar and get that martini, or that that have great martinis, and you're going to go to the pub that has the beer that you like or the ale that you like. So I think in a place like London, there are going to be more pubs that make great cocktails than maybe outside, because there's so many great, there's just, it's a lot of people come to London to learn their craft. So, maybe out someplace else that you go to a pub, they might not have as good cocktails because it's not a city that concentrates on cocktails. But I don't want to make any pub owners angry. I'm sure you can get a great drink at any pub anywhere in the UK, because they're really special to me. I love a pub. So it's what makes the UK are the wonderful pubs too.
One of the things that makes the London culinary scene so interesting is this, you talk about this influx of people from other places, and that's one of the things that makes London food so good. The cuisine of London is all of these influences that have come from, around Europe, but especially from around the world. What kind of influences are you seeing in the cocktail scene that might be coming from other places?
Oh my God. There's so much. London, I think, is one of the most, if not the most international city in the world. People come from everywhere. So we have, just the other night, we had, there's a wonderful bar called Viajante 87, and they bring in their specialty is South American spirits, and they bring in not only famous bartenders to do guest shifts from, South America and Central America, but also chefs. And they do nights where, in fact, last night was one, where they bring the chefs from that same country in and do a whole night of, food, a tasting menu, and then cocktails to go with that, and then cocktails after. So that's one thing. I think what's great is that there is this takeover culture now, which is really fun. So bars will invite, maybe on slower nights, say the Monday night or Tuesday. It used to be that. Now they just do it all the time, which is great. So you can get a bartender from, say, the Clumsies in Athens coming to London and doing a guest shift. And that can't help but influence all the others. I mean, they're bringing their style, which might be specifically very Athenian or Greek, to London. It can't help but rub off on, who's behind the bar, or teach them something new, or, use a spirit that might not be that well known here. So maybe they're using mastica in a cocktail that might not have been used before. at that bar, just to use an example. So it's happening every day, all the time. And there are guest shifts every week in all different bars around the city. So it's really fun, especially for a cocktail lover. I mean, God, it's great.
Yeah, yeah. So that's interesting. When you say things like doing guest shifts or takeovers or something like that, are bartenders becoming the new rock stars? Because there was a time like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, where we were talking about, chefs are the new rock stars. And then it was the farmers are the new rock stars. And now I'm wondering, is it the bartenders that are the new rock stars? Maybe it could be. It could very well be these are the new folks.
You know what? They were always rock stars.
Right.
Okay. Just now they're getting more press.
Right. Right.
They've always been my rock stars, should I say.
I mean, you write about cocktails, you blog about it, you talk about it on your podcast. How often are you out there, trolling the bars and checking out new stuff?
Trolling in the nice sense of the word, not the mean sense of the word.
Of course. Only in the best.
In the best sense of the word. I don't go crazy. I try and keep it, not every night am I out. Probably about 3 times a week, I would say. I like to be home. I have to write. Also, even though I love going to cocktail bars, I'm not a huge drinker. I mean that by I can't consume too much. I always try and drink I always do drink responsibly. So I'm more of a sipper. So I'll try a lot of different cocktails. Say if I'm going to a new menu, if a bar is introducing a new menu, I'd like to try a lot, like a little of a lot. And that's why I like to go with people. My partner always comes with me, so we can say order 4 cocktails and I get to try them.
Yes.
Because that's more fun than just having, 1 cocktail at a place or even 2 cocktails. Or someone just told me, I think this is called zebraing now, something like that, where I'll have 1, cocktail, normal cocktail, and then 1 made with non-alcoholic spirits just to try those and then have another cocktail so that I can continue the night. So that's a long way of saying I go out a couple of times a week.
Right. I also make videos on YouTube, and sometimes I'll do them focused on cocktails or drinking in a specific place. And people are like, "Oh, I can't believe you drank that much." And I didn't. I had a couple. Right. I had a couple of sips of this. I had a couple of sips of that. I'm not drinking that whole thing.
No.
But it just occurred to me as you were saying this, Susan. When I go into a brewery, like a craft brewery, I often get a flight and sample several different beers. I haven't seen this in cocktail bars, but what a great idea it would be. And someone's got to be doing this. I can't be the first person to think of it, but have a flight of cocktails.
What's happening is I always thought that too, by the way. I was like, why can't I just get a flight of cocktails? Why can't, so I can try all the different ones. But what they're doing now is mini cocktails. Mm. So they're doing smaller ones, especially at a bar called Archive and Myth here in London. So you can actually also at, Bar Termini. They would always do, and I think that's the first place I ever had a Negroni. They would do mini ones. So you could taste it. And like last night I had a relative over and I said, "Do you want to try this Negroni?" And they'd never had a Negroni before and tried it and was like, "No, I don't think that's for me. Can I just have the Aperol Spritz?" Fine. Absolutely. Okay. But that you can try smaller versions of them so that you don't have to commit to the whole thing and maybe you don't like it.
Right.
And yeah, I think it's great. Archive and Myth are doing the mini cocktails. I remember Hendrix used to do a mini martini. I don't know if they still are promoting that, but definitely minis are out there. Thank goodness. I love it.
It's a great idea.
It's a fabulous idea.
Glad I thought of it. So you do your London cocktail tours, and right now you've got a tour that's focused in Soho. Give me an idea if I were to go on the tour with you, Susan, what it would be like, what would the experience be?
Well, it came out of, I would have friends who maybe were coming in for one night and they'd be like, "What bars to go to?" And I'd be like, "Well, there's so many. How do I choose?" And then I thought, "Ooh, that's a great idea. How about I arrange that we, with some bars that I love that tell the story of this modern day cocktail renaissance that we were talking about in London and have that in one night. And so that's what I do. We start off, I don't want to tell you the bars because sometimes it's fun to be a surprise.
Of course.
But I start off at a bar and that was really, really influential. And then we go to another one and I tell the story of why that one was influential in this whole cocktail renaissance and who worked there and try the cocktails that are specific to the place. And then go on to a couple more. We do 4 in one night. It's about 3 hours long and you get always something to eat while you're drinking as well. And again, I just thought, God, I can't give people, 2 full cocktails at each place. That's 8 cocktails. That is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wanted them to try more than one. So I've worked out with the bars how to do mini cocktails since we are
Back
on
to the minis.
How funny. Perfect segue into mini cocktails. So they get at one place, it's a sharing cocktail. I'll just leave it at that. Then the others are, mini versions of the ones, but not enough to feel them and taste them. It's not like so tiny that it's not like one sip. In fact, one place I'm like, guys, these are really big for minis. They're like, but it is our mini, smaller versions. So you can taste why these bars are famous. And the ones that are created there and tell the story of that bar. I always say I want to tell the story of the bar, it's the people who are making your cocktails, why it's important, and its relationship to Soho specifically. Soho is great because you can walk around at each place, so it's not as if you have to take transportation in between. So it can be a really fun night out to be able to walk to these places, and a lot of people are like, oh, I can't wait to go back to this place. So if they have longer time, they have then gotten to know the bartenders or the place and feel comfortable there already. One place, the last tour I gave, there were some Americans and they're like, oh my God, we're so going back to this other place because now we know the bar manager and he's going to take good care of us.
Awesome.
So that was really fun. And it's a way for me also to promote the wonderful bars in Soho. And I point out other bars in Soho, not just the bars that we're going to, and say what the specialty is and do a little walk about the different places and who lived in Soho, throughout the century and what Soho is. And I think that's what you get in the tour.
Sounds like so much fun. I mean, it would and I'll bet you by the end of the tour, you're also friends with all the other people, not only the bartenders and the bar managers, but the other people on your tour.
Absolutely.
Folks can book it at londoncocktailtours.com. Susan, you said something earlier that was really interesting and resonant to me. And that's, a lot of times when you go out, you'll get one cocktail and then you might get a mocktail, a non-alcoholic one. And I'm really starting to get into the mocktails quite a bit. I forget I should have looked this up before I talked to you, but there's a brand of 00 gin that I really like now. And when I don't feel like having alcohol, I'll make a G&T with that rather than regular gin. And I say this just because I think the mocktails have gotten so creative and so good that they really can stand on their own. It's not like, oh, I'm driving, so I got to have a non-alcoholic. No, they taste good. They stand on their own as something legitimate and interesting. What do you think?
Absolutely. And I think they have to now, because now it is a true category of drinking. The no and low is definitely a category. And, supposedly all the younger generations are looking for those as well. So I think a bar has to have it. They have to be creative about it. It's not swapping out a non-alcoholic version of something. And the best bars are quite creative about them because, they have pride in what they do. Obviously, also the range of no and low spirits is really great now. There's tons to choose from. I remember interviewing Ben Branson, who thought of Seedlip, maybe 2017. I think he had the one Seedlip, and then he was just coming out with his second Seedlip. And I re-interviewed him because he's created some bitters now. And I said to him, can you believe that you started this whole category? He's like, I know, Seedlip was the first one. And
wow.
in like 10 years, it's just exploded. So much so that there's a store in London called Club Soda that just sells no and low. It's amazing. I think it's great. I think it's really, anything that adds to the category is fantastic. I mean, to the whole spirits industry is fantastic.
Yeah, because there's all this hand-wringing now about, the younger generation, they're not drinking alcohol anymore. Yes, but they still want to go out and meet people and go to a fun, interesting place. So if you have options for them that they can enjoy that taste good, they're going to go there. Everyone thinks, these pubs are all going to close down. No, they're not. Not if you offer an exciting space where people can meet and have fun with their friends and meet new people.
Right. Absolutely. And it's just another way to be creative too. There's lots of products out there to work with. So you might as well get them in and they are drinking something. It's just, they're not drinking, the spirit. And again, it may just be for one cocktail. They're going to have an alcohol cocktail in the next one, like I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's great for me. I'd much rather, I don't really drink that much soda. So it's great, or juice. I'm not really a juice person unless it's in a cocktail, of course. It's great for me to have something different. I'm not just ordering, a fizzy drink. I'm ordering, something that someone's put their heart and soul into as well. Not that they haven't put their heart and soul into their fizzy drinks.
Sure.
Because I do love a tonic by itself as well. I'm a Fever Tree tonic girl.
Oh, Fever Tree. Yeah, so good. So what's next for you, Susan? You're always working on some stuff. So I'm wondering, do you have anything new? Do you have a new tour you're thinking about? Any new projects in your writing? What do you got coming up?
Well, I'm looking to do, so right now, the London cocktail tours, we only have one in Soho. And that has up to 6 people because the places are really intimate. I really like to do 5 and me so we can all fit around a table. And so I'm looking to do and doing, and they will be coming, ones in other areas that are a little bigger. So maybe fewer places to go to, but, the same amount of cocktails, same amount of history, same amount of fun for, maybe 10 people. So there's that. And also, I'm co-founded them in Venice. So we do Venice cocktail tours. And I know you've just had Monica.
Yeah, Monica was just on the show. She's fantastic. And that's luckily how I got in touch with you, Susan. So I can't wait to try the Venice cocktail tour and the London cocktail tour too. So I'm glad you're involved with that in Venice as well.
Yeah, Venice, there are 2 different tours. There's the classics because a lot of people don't know that a few cocktails were invented in Venice, like the Spritz and the Scropino, which look that up, guys, and the Blini, of course, And there's some wines that we get people to try, and coffee. The first time it came to Europe was through, one of the places was through Venice. There's a coffee shop from the 1720s that we point out. And then there's a mixology because there's a lot of stuff happening in mixology as well. So we do 2 tours in Venice. It's been fun. I love Venice. I've been going since I'm a little girl, so I know it pretty well. I love
fantastic. At the end of your podcast, you always ask folks, if you could be anywhere, where would you choose and what would you be drinking? So I'm going to turn the tables on you now, Susan Schwartz. If you could be anywhere, where would you choose and what would you be drinking?
All right, I'm going to get a little sentimental here.
Good.
Of course, I could be anywhere drinking anything. I love every bar and all that stuff. But my dad loved Venice so much. And sadly, he passed away a few years ago. And if I could be anywhere drinking anything, we would always, during our time in Venice, we'd always have our last drink of the night on the Greedy Palace Hotel bar overlooking Santa Maria della Salute. And we always drank a Sambuca on ice with 3 coffee beans in it, the Tre Mosche. And if my dad and mom could be together, all of us there, that's where I'd love to be. That's my number 1.
Wow. That's fantastic. Where, for me, if it was my dad, it would be an old style in the bleachers at Wrigley Field. But,
hey, equally as fabulous.
Yeah. Equally as fun.
And what's funny is that it's like Sambuca isn't even Venetian, but
right.
I know that. But it's a sentimental drink that we always did.
Well, Susan Schwartz from London Cocktail Tours, it's been a delight talking to you. It's been fun talking about the cocktail culture of London. I feel like I've learned a lot, but also it's been fun just sharing stories with you about cocktails and your life in London. Thank you so much for being on Destination Eat Drink.
Thank you so much. But I'm looking up right now what Robert Simonson's book is called.
Okay,
because
good.
I feel that I need to give him a shout out because he's a great writer. Of course, he's written so many books that if I put in Robert Simonson books, it's going to take me to 1 billion books. So Robert Simonson's book is called A Proper Drink.
There you go.
It's a narrative history of the craft cocktail renaissance. All right. So if people want to know more about it, definitely read that book. He's one of my favorite writers.
Thank you so much, Susan. Thanks for closing that loop for us. And thanks for being on the show. Look forward to seeing you in London sometime.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to show you around and share that cocktail.
Okay, that's Susan from London Cocktail Tours. You can book your tour at londoncocktailtours.com. That would be so much fun to do that tour. Okay, that's it for this week. Next week, we're in China for exploding dumplings, pizza topped with durian, and kissing mishaps. So don't miss that. Until then, there's lots more foodie travel stuff at destinationeatdrink.com. I just posted a new video. It's about a Portuguese chocolate festival. There's chocolate-covered strawberries, making chocolate spaghetti, and the latest craze, Dubai chocolate. Watch that by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or by going to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/@destinationeatdrink946. I also posted a brand new story. It's about the light as air pastry from Lille, France. It is extraordinary, and you can read about it at destinationeatdrink.com/blog. My Foodie Travel Guide ebooks are also available for download if you're interested in Portugal or planning a trip here. Get the Portugal Guide for just $9.99 at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink, and thank you very much. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson, and I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.